I love Pokemon. That being said, I really suck at Pokemon. I didn't play any of the old games as a kid, so when the new ones like Sword and Shield came out, I had a Switch and a little bit of that adolescence money. And for my first Pokemon game, it was good. It was fun. Scarlet and Violet finally came out a couple years later, and I picked that one up too. And that was basically the end of my Pokemon journey. Till now, I've been watching a buttload of Pokemon-themed YouTube videos. Some of them are fun little challenge runs, and others are a bit more competitive themed. And it got me thinking, how far could I, one of the worst Pokemon players of all time, climb into playing Pokemon competitively? So, obviously, I have a very long checklist of things to do because I'm so green to Pokemon, and those goals range from easy peasy to not so easy peasy. First things first, I gotta beat the game again. Since I had to reset my Switch a while back, I basically have to start all over again with a few of the Pokemon I caught the last time I played. After that, I gotta build my team, and that means getting my IVs and my EVs maxed out. Now, if you're watching this video as some sort of tutorial, firstly, hi. Secondly, why? But EVs and IVs are effectively your Pokemon stats underneath their stats. Think of every Pokemon as like a piece of chocolate, and their stats being the wrapper around the chocolate. Every Pokemon has a base stat with a bunch of numbers scattered around through a bunch of different categories, being your health, attack, defense, special defense, and your speed. Now, if you take a look at this spreadsheet of this Venusaur, at its max level of 100 with no bonuses, the Pokemon's base HP will amount to 80. Technically, it isn't 80. It requires a bunch of other separate calculations that you have to do to actually get your legitimate health, but just, I'm not worried about that right now. Now, after you remove the chocolate from its wrapper, you get to the good stuff, the EVs. These are trainable stats that you get every time that you kill Pokemon. Each Pokemon gives about 1 to 3 EVs depending on the evolution stage, and different EVs on the 6 categories that you get depending on the Pokemon. And then every 4 EVs you get is a +1 to whatever stat. So if you got 80 in health, then you get 4 EVs in health, then you get 81 to your health, and then it changes how much health you got. Now, your IVs are stats that are randomly allocated to a Pokemon after you catch it. Think of the chocolate now as a caramel center. You've sucked off the cocoa, and now you have this gooey, delicious, unchangeable caramel. Now, to have a competitively viable team, you have to make sure that you're not going to get outsped, out-health, and out-damaged, and you got to get your EVs and your IVs straight. And I am willing to bet money that if you're new to Pokemon, you had no idea that this game meant for children was as complicated as I'm making it sound. Now, step 1, beat the game. Step 2, build the team and train the Mons. Step 3, build a better team, because the one that I use to beat the game is more likely than not going to be the one that I take to any tournaments ever at any point in time. I also have to learn about type matchups, because type matchups have always been very hard for me. Fire is strong against grass, and grass is strong against water, and water is strong against fire has always been easy. But when you get to the psychics and the darks and the bugs, then it gets a little bit more confusing. At the time of writing this script, I have learned that Spug is strong against Psychic, and even in saying that, I still had to go look it up just to be sure. You also want a team with good defensive coverage, which means that you're weak to less moves, and you want a team with good offensive coverage, which means that you do more damage to more Pokemon. So it's just a lot of things that I have to do. Step 4 is to go online and get some practice, and step 5 is to finally sign myself up for a tournament. So, to recap, beat game, train Pokemon, build team, go online, go to tournament. Seems simple enough, right? Wrong. Now I stand here in front of you, my lovely loyal viewer, in hopes that I can document my journey to becoming a world champion, or at least gaining enough internet popularity that Pokemon Company will fly me out to an event, or to Worlds, or send me a box with merch in it, or something. I don't know. Realistically, I know that I'll probably never even make it to a loser's bracket of a tournament, even locally, considering how late I am into playing Pokemon. But everybody got to start somewhere, and so I start here. In a little town in Mexico with Ku, the Fuecoco, Pearl, the Tinkatink, Haley, the Roltz, and Ignis, the Fletchling. Now, I was going to hunt a shiny Tinkatink because Tinkaton is my favorite Pokemon of all time. But on the way there, I found a Toxel, a Gumi, and a Swablu, and I didn't want to take that long to get one Pokemon, and since Toxel started beating my ass so badly that other Pokemon started watching, I decided to just move on with what I had and leave the shiny hunting for another day. I'd also intended to nuzlocke the game for fun, and if you don't know what nuzlocking is, it's basically this self-imposed set of rules that Pokemon players love, where every Pokemon that faints dies forever, and you have to name every Pokemon so you get emotionally attached to it, and you can only catch one Pokemon per area or per route. But since I was going to be taking these Pokemon to a tournament and they'd be dying a lot, I didn't feel like relegating my Pokemon to like the 4 or 5 I can actually survive with. So, if they die, they come back to life. That's just how it is. To beat Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, you effectively have to complete one of 3 quest lines. You have the Pokemon Gym Test, which is like the basic Pokemon thing that you have to do in every game. But in this game, they introduced the Titan Hunts, where you got to fight big Pokemon, and the Team Star matches, which is like the equivalent to Team Rocket in the older games. First things first, we got to get past the bug type gym, and for that we have to do the test. And I was just gonna complete the test and speedrun the game, but then I realized I am leaving behind valuable EXP. So I parked my olive outside the goalpost, went back, pressed them out, and we were good to go. Fire is super effective against bugs, so the gym was pretty easy. In Pokemon, it's kind of like a really evil game of rock, paper, scissors, except that one little asshole kid who loved to say gun actually had a point, but this time gun can be beaten out by, I don't know, maybe bazooka, and bazooka can be beaten out by scissors, and it's just a really tangled web where everything beats everything else, and some things are resistant to other things and weak to other things, and it's very confusing. But today, the first 2 gyms are easy because bug type is weak against fire and grass type is weak against fire. And those are the first 2 things that you have to do when you play the game. So it goes by pretty quick. Some Pokemon have 2 typings, which means that when they get hit by a move that is super effective to both of those individual typings, they take quadruple damage, which is really, really messed up. But today, all of my Pokemon except for Pearl, I think, are singular typing, so I don't have to worry about it for now. Do you hear that? The beautiful acoustics of a super effective move connecting with the Pokemon. Oh, it's enough to bring tears to my eyes. After defeating the lesser members of the Bug-type gym and getting Ku nice and evolved to a Crocalor, it's on to Katie, the actual leader of the gym. And the strat is pretty simple. I mean, she's going to throw out her Nimble and her other Pokemon that are Bug-type, and I'm going to throw out Ku, my Fire-type, and Ember my way through. And that's basically exactly what happens. Her Nimble gets packed up and shipped out to whence it came, and the Tarantula got its skull chewed on. Teddiursa, the last Pokemon of this gym, comes out and terrestrializes into a bug type, and out of fear of a miscalculation, I wanted to one-shot it, so I terrestrialized too. Okay, we're all good. I snagged my photo, I got my badge, and was off to the next gym. Now, do you remember those quest lines I was telling you about? Well, this one's Arven's. I found a giant old crab climbing up a wall on the way to my grass-type gym, so I figured I'd handle that real quick. It was pretty easy. Pearl just basically metal clawed it to death until it hit stage 2. We killed the thing off, got some yummy little herbs, and Arven made a delicious sandwich, and it was off to the grass-type gym, where I go through the laggiest gym experience, only to be met with the next easiest gym for me and my fire alligator. Unfortunately, I forgot to actually use my fire alligator, but Pearl, being a steel fairy Pokemon, isn't exactly weak to bug moves. She did, however, get put to sleep basically the turn 1 and was out of commission for the rest of the fight. So I switched into Swablu, thinking that the flying type was strong against the grass type, and after taking way too long to kill one singular Pokemon, I think my brain finally switched on, and I switched into my starter. You know, the fire type Pokemon that probably should have just one-shot the entire gym in the first place. Well, maybe two-shot. Still early game. After a couple more embers, we beat Brassius. Or should I say, Asius. Please don't leave. I decided to finally get through with one of those Team Star quests, and it has a lot of plot I will be skipping over. Now, after I beat the first 2 gyms where I had type advantage, so it was pretty easy, I have now met my first actual challenge. This is the learning moment though, because now we get to learn how ass I am at Pokemon. First things first, I led in with the sleeping Pokemon, which I don't think I need to explain why that's bad. Second thing second, I led with the Steel-type Pokemon in the Fire-type fight, which I guess it's less self-explanatory, but Steel is indeed weak to Fire. And third things third, I had no good leveled Pokemon, and everything was so weak and under-leveled compared to this one baby Houndoom that I had nothing going on for myself. Even after switching into Gumi, who did have a Water-type move on him for that super effective damage, after switching in, I ate an Incinerate and expecting to move a little bit faster, ate a Bite. And so I didn't even get a chance to use Gumi's move. I basically just switched in to die. After switching into Cloud, she did live the attack on 1 health, but I mean, she did so much piss poor damage in response that even if she didn't die immediately in the next shot, I think this would have still taken forever to get through this fight. The rest of my Pokemon followed suit, and it was basically over before it even began. Now, I did leave to go farm some XP from the trainers in the area, but then I realized, hey, that's boring. I'd rather bash my head against the wall and try again. So I walked right back up to where I left off, and I lived with the proper Pokemon this time. You know, the one with the water move. I even terrestrialized in hopes that I would get some better defensive capabilities, and even that wasn't enough, because after the super effective water gun, I got force switched out with the roar, and after a couple switcheroonies back to Goobert, he got knocked out with another bite, which was my 4th mistake. My 5th mistake was after losing Goobert, I thought that I needed him to survive and that none of my other Pokemon could do anything. So I used one of my other Pokemon to basically revive Goobert, sacrifice the life of my other poor children, and honestly, all I had to do was just swing. I finally got the memo, and I realized that not every problem requires a complicated solution. So after getting past the door and realizing this can only get harder from here, I decided to actually go out and train. Haha, made you look. Instead of training, I actually just went to catch a different higher level Pokemon that I was going to use to try and wipe through the gym. So after catching Tauros and naming him something very original and very funny, I was going to train him up. But after killing about 4 of his homies on his old block, I figured that that was still boring and that I would rather, again, smash me head against the wall. I matched up my Matador with her Torkoal, and even though I really tried to get something going with the fighting type moves, unfortunately he just got out-damaged by the Torkoal. Even if I tried to buff myself like a real Pokemon player would, I only got hit with a clear smog that basically nullified any stat buff I put to myself. I went for the double kick, but unfortunately Flame Wheel ruined my entire day, and even after switching into Goobert with the Water Pulse and Cloud with the Dragon Breath, it still wasn't enough to kill that one Pokemon. Ku comes in to get the bite KO, but at that point I traded 3 for the 1 and I still have a Pokemon to fight at the end of it. And big shocker, it ends up debuffing me like a real Pokemon player would, and even when I hit it back for a whole lot of nothing, I mean, look at that. Plus, it's ability activated. And for those of you who don't know, every Pokemon has an ability. The abilities could be good or they could be bad, but at the end of the day, all abilities do something during battle. And Revroom's ability makes it so every single turn in battle, its speed gets higher, and I can't stop that. At least I never figured out a way to stop that. So now my attack sucks and it's faster than all my mons, and it has type advantage to at least one of my Pokemon. So I get sent back to the drawing board. I went outside, caught a water type Pokemon, and I evolved Pearl once. And time for round 2. So this time I went in with a little bit of knowledge that might actually help me decide how to go through the fight and who to start with. Trying to be a smarter player, I led with the water type Pokemon, and after a quick tear type to get some of that max damage on Torkoal, I think we'll be in good shape. Learning moment, learning moment. So I actually learned, after a very quick Google search, that there are field conditions in Pokemon. There's about 5 of them, but the one we're dealing with right now is called Harsh Sunlight. What that does is it boosts fire type moves, but it weakens water type moves. So even when I think that I'm learning and that I'm doing something better, I'm actually wrong still. You can even see the Flame Wheel do less damage to my Pokemon after the Harsh Sunlight ends. I used Ancient Power because the game told me that it was more effective, and apparently it's supposed to raise your stats by 1, or at least it has a chance to. Spoiler alert, it never did. But I ended the fight with Turbo. Unfortunately, Torkoal was basically just a warm-up for Big Daddy Revroom, and even though my Water Pulse did enough damage to make me feel comfortable that I could do it, the damage down that the Revroom has basically just ruins my chances of everything, and with no question, I'm going to get one shot. It was time for my 3rd attempt, and this time I actually had a plan to make it go better. See, I knew that Turbo was going to get me some good damage at the end of it, but it didn't matter if he was either dead and or lowered his damage before the fight actually started. So I figured that if I led with my other Pokemon and then actually put in Turbo at the end, it would work. And it, for the most part, did. Cloud got off a good para on the Torkoal with the Dragon Breath, and from there it was relatively easy to go through it. I switched in with Ku to use Snarl and load the Revroom's special attack, and after a cool little rap battle that the two had with each other, and Ku got smoked, it was time to switch into Turbo, get that Terra, and boom! That's what I'm talking about, baby. Now I can finally just heal stall and get through the rest of this fight pretty easy. Now, like I said, that was the first real challenge, so it's nice to see where my actual knowledge of Pokemon lies, and it lies in the 3rd fight of the game. But I digress. On the way to the next story event, I found a Dreepy, and then I accidentally killed the Dreepy, which was really awful of a feeling, but it's a Pokemon that levels up at like level 50, so I guess it's okay to let it go. So I instead ran around the area until I found another one, caught a Weasel instead, named Loretta, did my first Terra Raid and caught an Applin, And I saw somewhere that Applin's evolution Hydrapple was pretty good and competitive. So if I just look up here, how to get Hydrapple. Let's see, something Dragon Scent, Dragon Cheer, Diplin, beat the Indigo Disc. Damn. On the way to the next gym, Nimona tries to talent check me, but unfortunately her Rockruff, Palmy, and Florgato all bite the dust, a very quick death. And so I, for the gym challenge, took some photos of the academy director, and it was time to go. At some point, I caught a Pincurine, and I traded it for a Haunter, which then leveled it up to a Gengar that I wanted to use, but didn't. Now, for the actual fight, I was feeling kind of vulnerable because I don't really have an answer to Electric-type Pokemon, considering that Ground is really the only thing Electric is weak to, and as you can see, my team isn't, good. Nevertheless, we are here for a reason. So, Iono's first Pokemon, Waffle, comes in and goes out pretty fast because of Pearl's Brutal Swing, and next up is her Bellibolt. Now, Bellibolt's a scary Pokemon because it has an ability that makes it so every time that it's hit, its next Electric Charged move is, well, charged up. Which was scary, but none of my Pokemon are really weak to Electric except for Loretta. So I switched into a Magnemite I caught earlier off screen named Zipstop, and because I figured, you know, doing less damage was bad, but at least I was taking less damage because it's an Electric-type Pokemon and I should be resistant. Unfortunately, I was forced to switch into Applin and use the move Rollout because every single time that you use Rollout and it connects, it gets a little bit stronger, so I hope that would carry me through the rest of the fight. I get the Bellibolt KO, but unfortunately, Caramel the Applin is not fast enough to kill Luxio as well. Now, I figured that at this point I needed to start bringing Pokemon back that could actually fight, so I switched into Cloak for a sacrifice while I healed up Pearl, and the sacrifice was accepted. Cloak getting sent back to the grave with a super effective dark move Bite. I switched into Loretta hoping I can get some super effective damage down, but unfortunately I got my typings mixed up and forgot that Electric's actually strong against water, not the other way around. I Terraslized to get that little extra power boost, but unfortunately I did not do nearly as much damage that I took. So Pearl comes in, clutches up with Brutal Swing, but there still is the threat of Mismagius. Now the reason Mismagius is scary is because when Terraslized, Iono's Mismagius has an ability called Levitate. Now, Ground is the only move that is super effective against Electric, but unfortunately with Levitate, Pokemon are immune to Ground-type moves, so I'm kind of at a loss of what I'm supposed to do here. Mismagius tried to confuse Pearl, but luckily she's immune to that sort of thing, and after a quick little heal and swing battle, I got my next gym badge. Now, I'm not gonna lie, my team is looking buns right now. Half my team is weak to ground-type moves, and I'm just so thankful there isn't like some sort of ground Pokemon I gotta fight later on. I get roped back in for the Arven fight, but honestly, the next two things, nothing really happened. I took out the Steel Worm, and I beat up the Flying Bird, and it didn't take me much time at all. And considering how easy it was to go through these, I started getting a little bit too confident. So I decided I'd take on the next Titan, the Ground Titan. Oh shit. I led with Loretta because I knew that water was super effective against ground, but unfortunately she got one shot. And that being one of two of my Pokemon that weren't super effective to ground. Yeah, so that's about as good as that went. I need to go reevaluate and do something else. I feel like I got put in my place, so the first thing that I can do is response is to go handle another Team Star fight. For some reason I thought it was poison, but it was actually dark, and so I go in with Pearl and Loretta and basically wipe the whole thing. I lost Loretta using Aqua Jet, but I mean, honestly, that doesn't even matter because Pearl came in with the clutch Brutal Swing and ended the fight, and basically sent me on my way to the next gym, the Water Gym. I ran some errands for the gym leader Kofu and went to go challenge his gym. First Pokemon coming out was Veluza. I figured that Electric was a good answer for this water-type Pokemon, but unfortunately Zipzop took a crit and died. Pearl came in to get the clutch with the Brutal Swing like she always does, and next came Kofu's Crabdominable? Crabdominable. Ugh. Even after it teared, I sent out Hauntikins for some of that good old-fashioned Hex Hypnosis action, and that basically put the thing to sleep. Permanently. With this done, I was basically through with halfway of the game. Unfortunately, I couldn't actually celebrate just yet because I couldn't stop thinking about that stupid iron treads that pressed my entire team like apples stuck in your teeth that you need to floss out. I had to go handle it. I led with Zipzop thinking that I was going to paralyze Iron Treads, but I think I forgot that Ground is actually immune to Electric, and Steel and Electric is actually doubly weak to ground, quadruply weak to ground, so I tried to switch into Hauntikins to get some of that Triple H action, Hauntikins, Hypnosis, and Hex, and since Rapid Spin, the move that's been ruining my day, is normal type and not effective to ghost types at all, I figured I would be safe. But unfortunately, I lost a Hauntikins to a Iron Head before I actually got a chance to make any moves, and I was on to the next Pokemon. At this point, I figured that it was basically over. I mean, Ku and Pearl are both super effectively weak to ground, and Loretta's just going to get one shot again. Oh my god. I'm guessing because she evolved, she has slightly better stats like health and defense, and now she can actually survive a hit from this bastard and hit back for super effective. So now the issue is the sandstorm that started, but I mean, I feel somewhat confident that I can make some moves. Unfortunately, Iron Treads is much faster, and Iron Head does kill Loretta on the second attempt, so now I definitely feel like it's doomed. However, I did forget that Iron Treads is more iron than you would think it is, so when I switched in with Ku and I hit it with a flamethrower, it actually did a pretty good amount of damage. She pulled through, brought us home to the second win, and after I healed all my Pokemon up, led with Loretta to get some of that good old-fashioned water damage, and pulled through with Ku, the next fight was over. On to the normal type gym, and to meet the fan favorite Larry. I went into this gym thinking that I still needed a fighting type Pokemon for the normal type Pokemon, so I brought Matador back off the benches, didn't train him up even in the slightest, and just put him right into the battle. I did at the very least lead with Pearl, because she did have a fighting type move at the time, but unfortunately she got slept with a yawn from the opposing Kamala. Pearl did the damage that she needed to do, and so I switched into Hauntikins thinking that the ghost type Pokemon would be immune to the normal type moves. Unfortunately, Kamala is a holder of Sucker Punch, a priority move that moves first as long as the opposing Pokemon use an attacking move. And since Dark is super effective against Ghost, I lost Hauntikins actually. Ku came in to pick up the KO on the Kamala, but I mean, I didn't really feel like it was worth it at that point. Especially not after she got slept, and that means I needed to switch. Again, I finally brought in Matador, the fighting type Pokemon, but the type advantage means next to nothing once I swap into getting hit. So, unfortunately at this point, most of my Pokemon are either asleep, dead, or useless. Larry switched in his Dunsparce, and I don't know if the CPU made some sort of mistake or just wanted to hurt me and kick me while I was down, but instead of putting Matador out of his misery, it just glared at me. And honestly, even with that, the match didn't go much better afterwards. I mean, most of my Pokemon are still weak to ground type moves, so Dunsparce, being an owner of Hyperdrill, basically just wiped out my entire team. Going in for round 2, the strategy wasn't much different. I basically led with Pearl, used some Rock Smash, and I mean, this time I had some battle items to use, so I was hoping it would go a little better. I queued her Sleep with a Awakening and switched into Matador for the Dunsparce. Terrasilize with a fighting type, and I used an X attack to attempt to give that extra boost because the move I was using was low kick, and it's not a strong fighting type move at all. I went for the KO, but it didn't actually KO, and unfortunately with the low health and the low damage that I had because of Glare, I had no choice but to switch out and basically just waste my X attack that I used during the battle. I tried to switch out and heal Matador up in hopes that maybe I could bring him back in and, I don't know, pull out a kill. I switched into Ku, hoping that she could live at least one Hyperdrill, but I was so unbelievably very wrong, and I ended up having to come back into Matador and secure the win. Now comes out Larry's ace, Staraptor. And at this point, the game actually decided to cheer for the guy that I was supposed to be fighting, which was a huge shot to my self-confidence, but I digress either way. I thought that I was fine until Aerial Ace basically one-shot Matador, and all of the healing that I spent time doing was effectively for nothing. And I can't even use the Triple H strategy because, again, immune to Ghost-type moves. I ended up sacking Haunty so I could bring back Pearl, and then I ended up sacking Zipzop so I could actually heal her up, and both of my Pokemon died very fast deaths. At this point, this felt like a roadblock I would never get past. I mean, at my current level, losing meant doing all of this all over again, and God forbid I have to go outside and train. Unfortunately, my preteen Pokemon Pearl couldn't actually do much here. I mean, she didn't have enough health to tank too many moves, I didn't have enough potions to bring her back to life if she did get hit, and I didn't have enough damage to justify using potions to bring her back to life every single swing, like I did with Turbo and a couple other Pokemon before. But finally, through the dust and rubble of eating a facade to the forehead, I saw a speck of hope in the distance. I lowered Staraptor's defense, and those magic words lifted my spirits off from the ground, and just like that, we are so back. The health is obviously still a problem that is not going to go away, but I'll be damned if I don't give it my best shot. So I pop an energy root for 120 health, and I swing yet again. And guess what? I got another defense down. All I gotta do is heal up one last time and swing one more time. The issue that I'm facing now is I don't have any good health potions. The only thing that I can probably do is give back 60 health, and I don't think that's enough to tank one more shot from this Staraptor. So I'm kind of at a loss. I can either spend multiple turns healing myself up higher, but if I spend 2 potions to heal up, I'm just going to take all that damage back, and I'll be stuck healing forever. So I'm at a loss. One thing, though, that you'll need to learn about me in this journey is I am a gambler. So I had Pearl drink that super potion, and I got ready to swing that one last good time, and whether I failed or whether I succeeded, I was going to try. I told Pearl to lift her hammer, get ready to swing, and all of a sudden, the CPU messes up. Instead of doing its normal high damaging facade move, it actually used Aerial Ace, and it wasn't nowhere near as effective, so I ended up actually being able to heal and attack and get the win. I overcame Lariat, something that I thought I was not going to be able to do. I figured I would be stuck on that forever, but I got past it. I got my next badge, and of course Nimona gives me another one of her talent checks, but I mean, it was fine. Pearl ended up taking out the Lycanroc pretty easy. Loretta ended up taking the Palmy out pretty easy, and Ku took out Meowscarada pretty easy, so I felt like I was in really good shape. Although I did realize I was underleveled as I fought a fully evolved starter Pokemon at this point, but Type Advantage basically just carried me through the fight. I went on to tackle the Poison type Team Star match, and I mean, it was okay. Pearl has a Poison immunity thanks to her Steel typing, and so even though I continuously got sucker punched by the Skunk Tank on the other side of the board, Loretta and Zipzop teamed up to take out the Muck on the other side, and I was on to the car. Now, I did learn the hard way that this Pokemon did have Flame Charge, and that's really scary for a few of my Pokemon. I switched into Ku for the Reverum, thinking that the Fire would do good against a Steel-type Pokemon, but it didn't go as well as I hoped. Noxus Torque ended up taking out Ku, and after doing a couple of switch rounds to eventually heal her up and bring her back, some of which including Bismuth, the Dratini that I caught somewhere unrecorded, Ku came in with a Flamethrower and tied this one right up and sent her off. On my way to the next gym challenge, I found one of those wild Terra Pokemon, and it was a Dratini. It was pretty cool, and it took me a few minutes to catch it, but I named her Amethyst. And I mean, honestly, at this point, I don't really think I need to catch any more Pokemon. Is that toxicity? Okay, fine. Now I'm done catching Pokemon. Fuck! And after catching a different Gabite, it was time to tackle the Psychic Gym. So I pulled up, I did my little dancey dance, and I figured I could do that thing now with my newly evolved Skelk, where I can just use Torch Song, raise my special attack, and wipe basically every single Pokemon in the game. So I did my little dancey dance again, fought this old dude named Raphael, and so we threw out a Grumpig, and then I bit him, and then I bit him, and then I bit him again, and then I bit him again, and then it died, and then he had to send out a Medicham, and then I bit it again, and then I got kicked in the nose, and then it sung at him, and then it died, and then I got ready to wipe Indeedity's ass, and then my game crashed. And then I had to do all of that all over again. It was worth it at the end of it because I finally evolved Pearl into her greatest self. I'm trying to find a transitional word I haven't used yet. Consequently, we have to take on the Psychic Gym. I felt like this was a good opportunity to see how strong Pearl had really gotten. So I led with the Retta, did a little bit of damage to the Farigiraf, switched into Pearl, and used that 150 power Gigaton Hammer and knock out the half-dead Giraffe. Esparta came out but got knocked out and sent back just as fast. And Gardevoir comes in and low-key kind of pieces Pearl up, but after the Gigaton Hammer Oko was enough to get by, Tulip sends out her ace, Florges, and even though it tries to come out and avenge its fallen brethren, Zipzop has the most annoying thing ever, Thunder Wave. So, unfortunately, Florges will never be able to move again, and after a quick Volt Switch into Bismuth, and I used Ku for a Shadow Ball, Ku then died, and I brought Pearl back in for that Gigaton Hammer, and I claimed my next gym badge. I head over to the Ghost Gym after that, where Nimona, of course, wants to run the set again. I'm getting really unlucky with these. It goes just about as easy as the rest of them have gone. I mean, you know, her Lycanroc was bashed, her Palmot was smashed, her Sliggoo did do some pretty big damage to Bismuth. But it didn't matter because Sliggoo got thrashed and Meowscarada got lashed, I guess. Whatever, Nimona's done, and I moved on, and I even evolved my Magneton to a Magnezone and went on to the rap battle part of the game. Yeah. Watch this man Loretta looking better than a shuppet. He a puppet. Tell that boy to go and stuff it. Hey, look, at Graveyard, dude, that man is not hard. He got some tiny little legs on his body. He cannot walk far. Me next to the Pokemon Cypher. Oh, I'm on Pokemon Cypher. Yeah, I need a Ghost Rider. My fault. This, unfortunately, for Rhyme and all of her friends and her homies that likes to rap, This was the easiest gym that I possibly could have gone through. I mean, all I had to do was put in Pearl with the Brutal Sling and Loretta with the Bite, and even after killing one of my Mons on accident, I still blasted through not only the gym tests, but also the gym challenge. I sped over to the Ice-type gym, which I figured was going to be really easy because with a steel-strong move like Gigaton Hammer, I figured Pearl would basically just run the entire gauntlet. Oops. Well, I guess Zipsop's going to have to... Shit. Whatever, I've whittled it down just enough so I can get this done with Ku, and I head over to the fighting-type Star Locale. Now, this was another one of those hard ones. The Krogunk at the door wasn't too much of a problem, but the Primeape after that ended up debuffing Pearl, hitting with the close combat and ending her life that day. We still pulled through with the KO, but I mean, if that's how I was looking at the door, I'm not looking forward to this fight. I grabbed Amethyst out of the boxes, I leveled her up to a Dragonite, and I went in with the Flying-type move, Wing Attack. I also had the option of using Hurricane, but I figured using the stronger, less accurate attack over the weaker, but more accurate attack was stupid. And I was stupid for thinking that. Even after hitting Toxicroak with an OHKO, one-hit KO, you might be thinking, what am I talking about? Well, my loyal content consumer, peep game and watch this. Yeah, the guy had Ice Punch on him. So that was obviously quadruply effective against my Dragon and Flying type Pokemon. Of course, I could try and sack some other Pokemon, use Thunder Wave, and try and lower this thing's speed and make it so it can't move. But I mean, at that point, I think that my Zipsop will just die before she even gets a chance to use Thunder Wave. And both the rest of my Pokemon are basically just screwed as it stands. And, well, you know. I used a Scyther I caught outside to try and, you know, do some damage, but it doesn't matter how much damage you can do if you can't move first, and I also didn't do good damage, so I basically just used Scyther and inevitably ended up using Pearl to heal stall for Amethyst to bring her back in. I ended up knocking out the Persimmon, and honestly, I felt like I was kind of back. Who teaches Lucario Dragon Pulse? Is that real? Is that a real thing? Okay, so I got pressed, and I went outside to try and find some Pokemon or anything that could bring me an advantage, and I ended up just doing basically the same exact thing as I did before. Toxicroak died to the Wing Attack, and this time I tried to use Terastallization to kind of tank more damage, and it kind of worked. Outrage almost killed, and even if close combat hurt really badly, another Outrage did the job. I swapped in the Cloak to keep the lead I had going, and I used Phantom Force, but unfortunately, even if Phantom Force is a 2-turn move that lets you avoid damage, you're gonna have to take it at some point, and Cloak sure did take it. Even after beating the Persimmon and still getting to Lucario and still getting Dragon Pulsed, I didn't feel very confident about this run. And finally, when I get to the Rev Room, its speed and damage get buffed, so I felt like I had to roll over and take it like a good boy myself. To make matters worse, its defense got buffed too because of its ability, so I just basically mentally gave up. And I've been working on this video for what feels like months now, and you know, this is really the first time that like I felt like I couldn't actually do it. So, after my second attempt, I went outside, I caught an Among Us named Among Us, and I basically did the same thing, except for this time I switched into Among Us for the Primeape, hoping to put it to sleep, but instead I stupidly put it to poison, and I don't deserve to play this game, man. After sacrificing 2 other Pokemon, finally that freaky ape was already dead, and after a few Torch Songs from Ku to get that buff up, the Persimmon went down too. All I gotta do now is... Oh my god, can I not breathe? Can I not save myself just one time? Since Ku was basically doomed from the beginning, I ended up bringing Among Us back to try and sleep the stupid dog, or I can instead use Toxic again on the Steel-type Pokemon, meaning that it's immune, and I'm basically just wasting my time. I'm yelling at myself from the future right now, and it's not working out. Every bad play I could possibly make, and I'm making them all right now. Oh, it's sickening. This next attempt, I figured I could buff Ku up with Terastallization first, but again, doesn't matter if it's faster than I am, so I tear it effectively for nothing. And looking back on it, it's probably good that I didn't Terastallize Amethyst, because when I finally got to Rev Room, the Pokemon that had high horsepower, a ground-type move, I basically would have just been one-shot again. After I finally got past all of the other Pokemon, and I'm now met with the final boss, luckily, it can only buff itself and hit me with relatively weak moves, so I can kind of chip its damage away, and on my last, third, and final attempt, I finally got done with it. Now, I accidentally paused the recording, and when I finally came back to, I was, for some reason, already at the Fairy-type Team Star member fight, but don't worry, you didn't miss anything in between. It was just traversal from one to the other. I had already even beat down on the guard outside, so all I had to do was go in there and use Gigaton Hammer, because Steel is strong to Fairy. That's all I had to do. So, instead, I lead in with Among Us to poison the opposing Pokemon, and it uses Bounce and hits him with the paralysis. Eventually, it dies of the poison, and for some reason, I stayed in. So, Wigglytuff could bounce that ass on me. I finally decided I was sick of getting paralyzed, and I used a heal only for Wigglytuff to bounce that ass yet again. I'm having a really rough day. Wigglytuff, Torque Machine, wouldn't stop bouncing that booty. And so I'm feeling like if only I had a super effective 160 base power move to, I don't know, do some damage or something, I could maybe get past this. Nothing interesting happens for the next 3 minutes, and finally, after I kill the stupid thing with a Giga Drain, I move on to the next Pokemon, Dashbun. And I just feel so dirty using this Giga Drain toxic stall tactic. I mean, I kill it finally, but at what cost? My dignity? Thank God the Rev Room was immune to toxic, or else I would have just did the same exact thing. I switched into Pearl finally, and I hit it with Gigaton Hammer finally, and it did everything that I knew it was going to do and more. And with this, I only had one more roadblock to get through, the Titan. I ran up on Dondozo, the false Dragon Titan, and I handled that fight pretty quickly. I mean, it didn't take very long. It didn't take multiple attempts. And after cleaning up all my other loose ends and fighting Arvin and Penny and Director Clavel, I was ready to take on the Elite Four. A nice man on the internet traded me a Pupitar that I evolved into a Tyranitar. Chip the Garchomp got grown up, and after putting Among Us in, this was my team for the Elite Four. We got Pearl, the Tinkaton. We got Chip, the Garchomp. We got Sophia, the Tyranitar. We got Koo, the Skelkadirge. We got Among Us, the Among Us. And we have Amethyst, the Dragonite. I think this is pretty solid, and a few of these might actually get used in an actual team that I put together later. After being the first person in history to fail the gym assessment, I went back, studied, passed, and I finally went back in there to go fight Rita. Rika? Rika's gym wasn't too difficult because of that whole Sport Giga Drain thing, and even after Among Us needed to get switched out and died, I still had, a couple Pokemon to use, Sophia taking out Camerupt with Earthquake, and after Rika sent in Dugtrio, Dragonite Aquatail was enough to wrap that one up. Her ace came in with Clodsire, and I thought that since her Clodsire set up with a Protect, I could set up with a Rain Dance that boosts my Water-type moves, and I was going to Aquatail it. It was going to be great. Unfortunately, the bastard had Water Absorb, and I was so sad that my brilliant, ingenious plan actually got stumped so very soon. But Chip came in to take it down to kill percentage for Amethyst, and it was about over. Now, I hope you'll realize I didn't actually use any heals or any revives this time around because I felt like this was important to get through without bringing Pokemon back and heal stalling with moves that don't inherently heal you. So, I did it. Didn't stop me from using revives after the fight, and when I came face to face with the youngest Elite Four member I think has ever been seen in history, I was ready to go. I mean, honestly, all I had to do was just lead in with Koo and use Torch Song, raise my special attack, and one-shot every Pokemon that was there. So instead, I actually used Chip, the Garchomp. And yeah, is ground strong against steel? Yes. Would fire have been better? Also yes. So, I made a okay decision when I could have made a good one. Luckily, Garchomp's a strong attacking Pokemon, and in the long run, it was probably better because most of her Pokemon actually had Sturdy, an ability that keeps you on 1 health if a move was going to one-hit you. So I guess it works out for me. Unfortunately, I actually paused the recording for the rest of this, so just pay attention to this reimagining of the fight. I don't remember what happened, but to what I can gather, since Larry was now using Flying-type Pokemon in the gym battle, I used my Rock-type Pokemon, Sophia, to wipe through the gym with a little bit of extra help from, let's say, Amethyst with, I guess, a Water move or two. I got through it. Next up was the Dragon-type Elite Four member, and this one was pretty easy because I had the Fairy-type, and Fairy is immune to Dragon, so I basically just used a combination of Pearl and maybe a Dragon-type move from either Chip or Amethyst here and there to run through this next part of the gym. Unfortunately, when I turned the recording back on, I was done. All the cutscenes were over, and I only had to fight La Primavera. The fight itself was relatively pretty easy. I mean, Pearl ended up knocking out Esparta in a relatively long, drawn-out battle. Both Avalugg and Kingambit were Torch Song victims, and Veluza came out. And I had hoped that I would faster, and I could use my damage buff Torch Song to one-hit it, but unfortunately, I should have paid attention to the type advantage, and I ended up getting knocked out in one shot. But Sophia picked up the kill on Veluza, and after the Go-Go came in and I heard grass type, and I knew I needed to switch to a dragon flying type, and even though for some really, really messed up reason it has Play Rough, which is a fairy type move, the second wing attack reels it in, seals the deal, and if only I didn't make the mistake of staying in on Glamora, not just because the rock typing of that Pokemon is scary for my flying dragon type, but the fairy type move that holds on to is scary for my dragon type flyer. So after I switched Perlin to use Gigatham Hammer to hopefully one-shot the Glamora, but unfortunately it lived on barely one. But that didn't really make much of a difference because all I had to do was pass the baton over to Garchomp and pick up my win. And just like that, I have beat the game. I've completed all of my goals. I've finally gotten every Pokemon that I feel like I need, at least, so that I can start tackling the DLC and going to get some of those other nice, juicy, legendary Pokemon from the older games. Ugh, Nimona. Alright, well, one last battle with my rival shouldn't hurt, and as you can probably guess, this battle went just like the other ones, and... What? Are you meaning to tell me that after all of those fights with Pearl and Lycanroc, and the last fight is where she finally decides to use a super effective critical hit drill run and one-shot my fucking favorite Pokemon? Are you kidding me? Whatever. The rest of the fight went pretty well after that. I mean, Sophia crushed Rock Rough, stupid ass. Chip ended up getting hit with a ice punch and dying. And, you know, now that I look back on it, it really pisses me off that she was truly holding back on us the entire time. Every single easy fight I had, that was like, what, 2% of her full power. I'm having a harder time now than I did with La Primavera. I mean, Nimona has me out here spore stalling a rat, and it worked. Amethyst handles her Gudra and her Dunsparce, and in the breathtaking final conclusion, Nimona and I, Mo, throw out our starters, the Pokemon we've had since the very beginning. They duked it out one last time to close the first chapter of my story, but very far from the last chapter of our story. Meowscarada comes into the battle, and Ku, unfortunately, just took it home with a super effective torch song. One-hit KOing Nimona's final Pokemon, beginning my legacy and ending my first YouTube video. I don't really know how to end it because I don't know how to segue, so subscribe. Bye!